Tractate Bava Batra, page 87 at the Mishnah. Here we continue with selling a product by using a certain measurement. We use samples such as mocher yain v'shemen lechavero. If someone who sells a food or drink, we use here oil, wine or oil. The Rashbam said it's not necessarily wine and oil. It's just example. V'hukru osher huzlu. And all of a sudden, after the both parties, let's use the name Reuven and Shimon, set up a price. All of a sudden, the price change. It's more, it's less. So in this case, the seller wants to back out to renege the sale, and or when it's a lower the price, the purchaser wants to change the price of the sale. So the Mishnah said, "Im anshelo nitmalet hamida lamocher." If the measuring of the vessel is not filled yet, so the merchandise still belongs to the seller, and he therefore can cancel the sale. However, mishenitmalet hamida lalokeach. The moment you filled the measure vessel filled with the merchandise belong to the buyer, so and the seller can no longer cancel the sale, and it's basically in the buyer's domain. Now, if it was a broker between the party, between the seller and the partner, so usually the way he does it, he basically measure for himself and then he sell it to the buyer. And v'nishbera chavit nishbera lasarsu, so it means the broker is the one, if it was broke, he is the one who take the loss. He is responsible for the ruin of merchandise. The Rivan in Tosfot explained that his category is a shomer sachar, the chayav b'Gemarrah Rabbi Weisblum, since he is a paid bali, a paid guardian, so he is responsible for a situation like that. V'chayav le'atif shalosh tipin. So they said that anyone who sells wine, oil, or similar liquids is obligated, after the transfer of the liquid into the buyer's vessel, to drip for him 3 extra drops from the measure. So, what's the idea of 3? Anyone have an idea why they use 3? So the Rashbam explained to us. He said, then he needs to do, I'm just using the word of the Rashbam, where is it? Le'achar irui hashemen ve'ayayin. He says, after putting the wine or the oil, chayav lehaod leatif shalosh tipin, he needs to put another 3 min hadibuk bedofnei haklali. So there is a book called Brit Shalom, and in the Parashat Kedoshim he explains, based on the Gemarrah in Menachot 29b, the Gemara said there is a pasuk that said Ki beka Hashem tzu olamim. So Kabbalistically speaking or midrashically speaking, they said that this is the world that the Almighty created. Olam hazeh, this world was created in the letter Hey, the way it's written Hey. Olam haba, it's Ka Hashem, it's the letter Yud. So Rashi explained over there, Menachot 29b, Chilek HaKadosh Baruch Hu et Shmo, is an anthropomorphic way. It's like God divided His name to 3 parts, V'hetef shlosha tipin, and it's dropped like 3 drop, Umeotan shlosha tipin, Na'asu mayim ve'esh ve'avir b'kol ha'am. And from these 3 drops, fascinating thinking. It was created of a water, a fire, and air for the whole world. V'chen katuv b'sefer tzirah. Sefer tzirah, if you hear my lecture of Kabbala, that's considered one of the earliest books. Some said it's the 1st, 2nd century early books of Kabbala. So what we understand, so the Brit Shalom explained that in a way God created the world is black from 3 different corners, and He left the northern part open. So since mikol tipa nivrat tzad echad, in each corner there is a 1 part. So originally speaking, God created in a way that the rabbis explain is like the Hebrew letter bet. And then when He saw that the world cannot survive in a sense of judgment the way that it's written, so Patach petach katan lebalei tshuva, the Almighty opened a small measurement for the penitent, ונעשו בצורת ה', and it turned, that looks like a letter Hey in Hebrew. So it means, and the one who elaborates beautifully on that is my brother-in-law. He wrote one of his many books. It's called Daf on Daf. It's page by page explanation of the sugiot in the מסכת. So Rav Mandelbaum, my brother-in-law, explains that ששלוש הטיפות שמהם נברא העולם, the three dropped that the world created from, מסמלים את החסד והטובה שקמה לקדוש ברוך הוא לברואיו, that the great kindness and goodness that the Almighty bestow upon his creature, בכך שנתן פתח לבעל תשובה, that he gave a room for the penitent, for people to repent, to return. ממילא לפי זה צריך אף המוכר להוסיף שלוש טיפות ולא ידקדק במילותיו. So therefore the seller needs to go extra mile, and that's the idea of 3 dropped, שלוש טיפות, and he should not be too greedy or miser, or you know, when he does so, the seller. Anyway, so he said, הרכינה ומיצית, הרי זה של מוכר. So they said, after he drips the 3 broths, if he turns the barrel on its side and drained out the last bits of the liquid that it contains, it belongs to the seller and is not required to give these last drops to the buyer. והחנווני אינו חייב להטיף 3 טיפים. But the storekeeper is not obligated to drip those 3 drops. Why? He's too busy to do this constantly. So the sage is not obligated him to do it. That's the way the Nimukei Yosef explains. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, בערב שבת עם חשיכה פטור. He says when it's come to a Shabbat Eve, when it's nightfall, when it's close to Shabbat, he is exempt. Obviously the question is, what exactly Rabbi Yehuda meant when he made this statement, and later Gemarrah explain what it's all about. So here, the first stage in the Gemarrah, they're dealing with the first clause of the Mishnah, the Reisha, that they said that until the midah, that it's not, the measurement is not filled, it's not, the deal is not completed. Only when it's total filled, then the purchaser bought it. So said Hamidah, the man, this measuring vessel, to whom it belongs at this point. Ilema midah delokech, ad שלא נתמלאה מידה למוכר, מיdah delokech היא. If you tell me that this is for the buyer, so why the Mishnah said that before the measuring vessel he fills? It's his measurement. Because he bought it and whatever it's within it. ואלא מידת דמוכר, you have to say that that's the part of the seller. משנפרד מידה ללוקח, when the measuring vessel is filled with a marginals belong to the buyer, so since it's measuring the seller, so the midah demochere, so it's not yet entered the possession of the buyer. So they said, Amar Rabbi Ila b'midat sarsur. Here we talk about the middleman. Because what happened is the middleman, he lends it to the seller, and once it's filled, it is loaded to the buyer so that he can transfer its content to its vessel. Tosfot, as we said that that's the measurement of the guardian, like Shomer Sachan, the pay guardian, and that's the reason why he's responsible. But anyway, he said, V'adim Ketana is Seifa, the last part of the Mishnah said, V'imaya sarsur b'nehem nishbera chabit nishbera la sarsur, Michal derei shalav b'sarsur, Haskinan, so that's, you derive from that the first part is not talking about the middleman. So they said, Reisha midah belo sarsur, seifa besarsur atzmo. The first part, first clause, measuring vessel belong to the middleman without the presence of a middleman in the transaction. And the last part, the last clause, is about the middleman himself, who is the present at the time of the sale. So consequently, he accepts responsibility of the barrel and its content. Then the Mishnah said, Hirkina umitzeit, harei hi shel mocher. He said if he turned the barrel on its side and drain out the last bit of the liquid, so the liquid belongs to the seller. כי סליק רבי אלעזר אשכח לזעירי. אומר להם, מי כאן תנא דאחת נערב מידות? Do you have anyone familiar with Midot. So Tosfot here explains, we see it also in the Rashbam and others, that it was two Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi. It's a big point that the Tana is not in our category, the Tana that we know. But anyway, they said, Ach vayei Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi, amar lei maika kashelach, ditnan. We learn in a Mishnah, Hirkina umitzeit. So if he turned the bell on its side and drained out the last bits of liquids within it, so הרי shel mocheretz belongs to the seller. Page 87b, Vehatnan, who learn in Tractate Trumot, chapter 11, Mishnah number 8, they said here, Hirkina umitza harezo truma. So he said that if one poured oil of truma from one vessel to another and turned the vessel on its side and drain out the last bits of the liquid inside, it's truma and you have to give it to the Kohen. So why we say that you have to give it to the Kohen, and when it's come to the sale you don't have to give it to the purchaser. אמר לי היית מרלה, הוא לא נמדת משנה אמר רבי אבאו משום ייאוש בעלים נגעו בה, because the despair of the owner who relinquishes his right to such a small amount of wine or oil, they say just touch upon it and rule that any remnant extracted from the vessel belongs to the seller. By contrast, with regard to truma, which is forbidden to someone who is not Kohen, the despair of the buyer is irrelevant, and therefore anything that remains in the vessel is considered a truma, and therefore is asura lezarim, it's prohibited to a non-Kohanim. Then we learn the Mishnah Bachen, ואני לא חייב להטיף. 3 טיפים. The storekeeper doesn't need to do the 3 drops, but he said, רבי יהודה אומר, ערב שבת עם חשרה פטור. רבי יהודה said, ערב שבת, eve of Shabbat, when it's about the sunset, so he is exempt. So they said, Ibailu, Rabbi Yehuda, who said that ערב שבת פטור, הרי שקראו לכולה, או אז למעשה פקראו לחומרה. Do you mean to say that he talk about the first clause that follow the word of Tanakama, that the seller needs to drop 3 drops, and Rabbi Yehuda come and dispute it and said that you should be lenient, that in the eve of Shabbat, when it's sunset, he is exempt from the dripping, or he speak about the last clause and therefore he should go the chumrah. So only the eve of Shabbat, when it's sunset, is exempt. The rest of the week, not. Tashma letanya, Rabbi Yehuda omer, ערב שבת עם חשרה חנווני פטור מפני שחנווני טרוד. So it means Rabbi Yehuda's words follow the Seifa, the last clause, and you come to be strict that the Chenvani, the storekeeper, is not exempt, only ערב שבת עם חשכה. משנה, השולח את בנו אצל חנווני ופונדיון בידו. So someone sent his son to a storekeeper and he hold a coin, like coin made out of gold, or tzlochit reika limdod shemen, like empty vessel to check the oil. So הוא מדד לו באיסר שמן ונתן לו את האיסר, שבר את הצלוחית ואיבד את האיסר. Unfortunately, if he broke the jar and lost the איסר, so the storekeeper must compensate the father as he give the jug and coin to one is that is not halachically competent. Rabbi Yehuda poter mipnei she'al benat ken shlacho, would exempt because that's the reason why he sent it to that storekeeper, and in order for him to return the oil or the isar, so it means that he exempt the storekeeper from the responsibility of that. Umodin chachamim Rabbi Yehuda, the sages agree to Rabbi Yehuda, bizman she'atzlochit biyad hatinok, that when the young child hold in his hand the jug, umadad chedvani betocha, that the storekeeper measure the oil into the oil into that vessel, shechedvani patu, that the storekeeper is exempt if the child break the jug. The Rashbam said it's still responsible for paying for the oil and the isar. The Gemarrah explained later on. Bishlama beisar v'shemen behaplige d'Rabbanan savri lo du yeshadrei v'Rabbi Yehuda savar leshaduri v'yeshadrei. So difference is, according to the sages, the father sent the child to inform the storekeeper that he needs the oil. According to Rabbi Yehuda, he just sent him to the storekeeper will send back the oil and whatever left over. So therefore the storekeeper is exempt from responsibility if something like that happened. Elat slochit. So what's the whole idea of the put responsibility upon the storekeeper? Avida mida'at hi. It's deliberate loss on the part of the father, as he entrusted the jug into his young son, who is not responsible enough to care for it. So they said, Amar Rav Oshaya, Bebal Habayit mocher tzluchit askinan. We talk about the father that he is sell jugs, and the father sent his son with the jug in case the store owner might want to buy it. בעל הבית מוכר צלוחיות עסקינן, כגון שנטלה על מנת לבקרה, וכדי שמואל דאמר שמואל הנוטל כלי מן האומן על מנת לבקרו. So obviously someone take from the expert in order to check it. Obviously people don't buy it like that. They want to check to see that that's what they are looking for. ונאנס בידו, something happened beyond his control while he's holding it. So it's like an accident while he's having a possession. It's broke, unfortunately. So chayav, so he's responsible, liable to pay the restitution for the vessel. He has the halachic status of a borrower, and therefore he bears financial responsibility for the lost. So Gemara said, Lema Shmuel Tanaihi. So you said that what Shmuel rules is a Tanaic disputation, and basically only the sages agree upon that, but not Rabbi Yehuda. El Rabbi Rav Yosef Damret Ravayu Acha Bechenvanim Mocher Tzlochiyot Askinan Ba'azer Rabbi Yehuda Tamei v'Rabbanan Ta'amayu. So Rabbi Yehuda hold that exempt the storekeeper from return. He followed that view of Ishtar and Shemen, as we explained earlier, that the father intend that the storekeeper will send with his minor son the jar with the oil. So therefore the storekeeper does it, he is exempt from responsibility. And as sages hold that the storekeeper is responsible, that the father intent was to tell the storekeeper what he wants, and he should send it with someone who is responsible adult. So therefore in that sense, he's not considering sending the jar by his youngest son. יחם הסייפה, מודים חכמים לרבי יהודה בזמן שהצלוחית בלתנוק ובמנה לחנווני לתוכה שחנווני פטור, ואמרת לו, do יש הדרי, you just tell me, the only purpose is that the storekeeper is because he just did it in order to inform the storekeeper of his order, but did not intend for the storekeeper to give anything to his son. אלא אביי בר אבין ורבי חינן בר אבין דאמרת רביו הכא במאי עסקינן, when the storekeeper is responsible for that. page 88, כגון שנטלה למוד בה. So here the storekeeper took it from the son in order to measure with that the oil that he's selling it. So it was in a special vessel, the Rashbam explained, and he just did it in order to measure. So there is a book called Pnei Shlomo that explained. So the reason the Gemara said it in order to explain to us why he imposed the responsibility on that. So if someone take an animal and he struck the animal in order to lead it, so it's become obligated to return it. So the same way the sages maintain that the storekeeper action hold him responsible and liable for the jug. So the Gemara said, so you may say that that's applied to animals, so that's a finder to the cape step away, which means he worsened the situation, he caused them to stray even further from the owner. But here, that the storekeeper took the jar from the son, and by taking it is not lost that jar miyama. So you hold this the view of Rabbah that he hold responsibility, and in a sense he should not return it to the son. So it's no base to say it, because therefore we don't have any rational reason for the view of the sages in the Mishnah. So El Amar Rava, Ani v'Arish b'Chavura, that's applied to Rabbi Zeira. He said Targimuna, who explained as follows: Umanu Rabbi Zeira, Acha me'asken gon shenitala lamod ba la'acherim, u'beshoel shelo midat kamiflegei. Mar, which is Rabbi Yehuda, Savar Shoel Avi. So Rabbi Yehuda hold that he is the same as the borrower. So once he returned the jug to the child, he is no longer responsible for it. Umar, which is Tanakama, which is the sages hold, Savar Gazlan Havi, that he is old as a robber, so he obligated to return the item to the owner. So consequently, what you see here, the owner of the store, he needs to pay for the jug the child broke because he reached the father. Now it's important for us to remember that there is a lot discussion here, not only in the Tosfot, but you see a Rambam. I'll just give you a vignette of that. Two things. First, the Rambam, Hilchot Gemarrah Rabbi Weisblum, chapter 3, I'm reading from the Koren edition. One who borrows an item without the owner's knowledge is considered a robber, and all of the halacha pretending to a robber is applicable to him. If one takes a vessel from the young son or slave of the owner and use it, he is likewise considered a borrower who takes an item without the owner's knowledge, and he is liable to pay for it. And then the Magid Mishnah on the Rambam in Hilchot Mechira chapter 4, you see it also in Choshen Mishpat 200, they said, if one takes for examination a vessel that has a fixed price from a craftsman, and he lifts it with the intention of buying it, if he likes it, he acquires that item and the seller cannot renege on the sale. If an accident occurs, the buyer is liable to pay for it. If the seller wishes to sell it as soon as possible, the vessel continues to belong to the seller until the price is agreed upon. Subsequently, the buyer acquires it by lifting or through another mode of acquisition, and you see more on that in the Sema on the Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat 200.